I create 22 unique pieces of content every single week. I post a daily email, I post 2 times a day on Instagram, I post once a day on YouTube, I have a weekly podcast, among some other more sporadic outputs. And I do all this alongside full-time client work, running a virtual community for brand owners, testing and launching new services, maintaining my website, and creating educational resources. And I say all this to say that I have a little bit of authority on speaking on the topic of how to generate more content ideas than you know what to do with. So as a brand owner without a brick and mortar store, your social media makes up nearly 100% of your income. And so therefore that makes your audience your greatest asset, the most important one certainly. But here's the problem. You don't have time. This is something I hear all the time when I'm encouraging my clients and brand owners that I work with to invest their time and money resources into their audience asset. This is the major objection that I get. And it's fair enough. It's very valid. It's a valid objection because on top of being a content creator, as a brand owner, you're also a designer. You're a seamstress, a marketer, customer service manager, communicator, sample tester, admin officer, accountant, human resources manager. These are just some of the roles that I could list off the top of my head. And this is just to start many of the hats that you wear. And so without having hired hands, content creation goes on the back burner. This happens sometimes, and it happens to many brand owners. You're not alone. But here's the thing. If you have many content ideas at your fingertips, there is one less excuse not to make content. You know you have to create it. You know that your audience is the lifeblood of your brand. Without a brick and mortar store, it is where your sales come from. It's the eyes from Instagram in many cases. And so having content ideas ready to make something means that you have one less excuse not to make the content. So if you trust me with a little bit of your time, you will leave with everything you need to start making today. You can come away with the tools that you need to start creating those content ideas and more than you know what to do with. So there's 2 types of content that are very clear to me. And the first one is product-focused content. Now, this is the stuff that's obvious. Most brand owners don't have trouble with the ideation process behind product-focused content because it's simple. You have a collection coming up, you advertise your product with promotions, behind the scenes, packaging, with spec details and outfit of the day and all of these types of things. These are all fueled by the product as the subject, and there's no problem with them. In fact, these types of content are essential. But when there is nothing to release, when there's no clothing that's looming, a collection that's about to drop, the problem is that the content goes on hold. And much of the reason behind that is because, well, quite frankly, if you're like most brand owners, you don't know what to post if it's not about your product. And so that's why this presentation is focused on ideation around the brand or the lifestyle behind your content, because that is less obvious. And your brand and lifestyle content has nothing to do with your product and everything about the messaging behind your brand. So let me start by talking about how I generate content ideas. I've told you in the beginning that I create 22 unique pieces of content every single week alongside my full-time income generating work, as you have that same income generating work or similar. So this is how I do it. I have scheduled ideation time, and that's 25 minutes every single day that I write an email. In that 25 minutes, I write something from start to finish. And I simply sit down, set the timer, and I write. I don't stop, write like crazy. I edit and I send, and it goes public. And that means some days it's better than others. But all in all, this is a practice that I have in my routine. Now, the other way I generate content ideas, I will say about that ideation for me is more creating than it is brainstorming, because I personally believe that brainstorming is overrated, because brainstorming is not actually getting started on anything. You haven't made anything, and usually starting is the hardest part. And so if you are in a practice of creating something within a boundary of time from start to finish every single day, you are doing both ideation and you are overcoming the fear of starting, which so many brand owners deal with, because you signed up to this to make clothes, not to create content. And so I understand it. But the truth is, again, without the brick and mortar store, it's kind of part of the job now. It was part of the job description, even though you might not have originally intended for it to be doing roles like this. And so part of the ideation process being more creating than brainstorming means you are consistently overcoming that consistent challenge of creating or really starting. And so, as well as my scheduled ideation time, I also have idea capture. And now this for me is literally a note pinned on my phone home screen. It's very easy. When an idea comes to me in the day, I can open up my phone, and it's the first thing that I'm able to click on very easily. It's accessible. My phone's always on hand, and so I can type it in and I never lose it. And so that means when it comes to the time of the 25 minutes every single day to write, sometimes I'll feel inspired and I'll have something already that I know what I'm going to write about. Other times, I will need to go to the idea capture location on my phone, find an idea that inspires me, and then write. And so it means I can systemize ideation, or really creating, in a way that it doesn't matter if I have ideas or I have writer's block, because I have enough ideas in my idea capture to last me for many, many months. And from my daily email, I create all other content. So that's reels, podcasts, articles, resources, and courses, etc. There's many other forms, but the point is that I have this grounding place of content generation in its most basic form, and every other piece of content that I create comes from there. So here's how you can do scheduled ideation as a brand owner in the clothing and fashion space. Again, ideation is more creating than it is brainstorming. Ask yourself, what time is already set aside for content creation? This question is key. And so what you're going to do is you're going to create, you're going to choose within that time that you already have set for content creation. You're going to find 15 to 25 minutes in each and every day. You're going to pick a consistent time. So you don't want it to be, sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the evening. But really, this part is more so about what works for you, because for some it works to do the same time, for some it doesn't. I'm just suggesting, if you have never done this before, start by doing it the consistent time every day. And in that 15 to 25 minutes, you're going to write a piece from start to finish. And that is your scheduled ideation time. You may be asking, I hear you, what am I going to write about? What I want you to do is think of stories from your own life. And these are stories that are on brand with your messaging. And so if your brand, for example, is focused on growing a community of artists, people who identify as artists, who want to be and aspire to be artists, and who enjoy art, that's an interest, it's part of their core beliefs and values in their life about creativity. What you're going to be doing is sourcing stories from your own life, from your day-to-day, moments you notice that you believe would be valuable to an artist or would resonate with an artist. And so here's a few places that you can write it down. You might have a blog. You might simply set the timer 25 minutes, pull up ConvertKit. That's what I use for my own email list. Or maybe you have a blog page on your website. You can use CMC. If you don't know what that is, that's okay. And you simply write out your blog, send it after 25 minutes. Maybe it's a newsletter, similar case. Instagram stories, that could work too. Twitter posts, threads, Instagram threads. It's a great place. It's much like Twitter, but it's the newer version, I suppose. You could have a note to self, and I include that one to say that it's okay that no one sees it in the beginning, because that's less the point. The point is generating ideas for content, and like it is for me, my daily email, a place where I source all other kinds of content, this 25-minute ideation routine can be for you as well. I promise, if you put this into place, even as a note to self, you will be amazed at how many ideas you can come up with. And so the objective of this creating time, the objective of this written piece, is to create as much value as possible for your very specific core audience and ask for nothing. This is not the space to advertise your latest drop. It's not the space to ask them to go to your website and buy your garments. That can come, and especially if you have a blog or a newsletter or something like that, you can add footnotes to do email marketing and things like that. But don't overcomplicate it, because in the beginning, it's just about writing and sharing stories that are to do with your brand messaging. And it's interesting because writing forces you to find the substance behind your brand. And why is that? It's because you cannot write for 25 minutes a day about your garment materials. And all I'm trying to say with this is that if you don't already have a clear brand messaging, I promise you will after this. I promise you will, because you'll get to a point where you realize you can't talk about your garment anymore. You can't talk about your product because it's dry and there's nothing to talk about. But by sharing stories and talking about your brand messaging, that is a well that never dries up, because stories are evolving. Stories we connect with. Objects are static, and your products are static. Even when you release new ones, there is still a sense of I can't think of the word, but it is static. So why do we write first? It's because writing is the most basic version of the idea, and you don't have to get caught up on how it looks from the beginning. Again, it's just about the substance of the idea. It's just getting the crux of a story. It forces you to get a story out, because if it's a good story, it'll be good in writing as it will be in the most engaging short form 90-second video clip you've ever seen, or a long form feature film or a short film. If it's a good story, it will be there. And you, from this place where you write down this ideation space where you're creating for that 25 minutes, you can turn the writing into short form videos, long form videos, photo collections, graphics and text visuals, mood boards, articles, video series, podcasts, interviews. These are just a few ideas to get you thinking. You're not limited to this, but I only list these out to demonstrate my point that this is not wasted time writing something, even if you don't think that your audiences want to consume your writing. Again, writing is the best place to start because it forces you to create something of substance. So without good ideas, the visuals have no substance. Okay, so the second part after your routine ideation is about capturing ideas. And that's because a very interesting psychological effect happens when you're in a routine of ideation, and it's that you'll start looking for the stories throughout your day. Even subconsciously, you won't have to think about it and they'll come to you. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. The first couple of weeks when I started writing every day my daily email, giving brand owners tips every single day about how to turn their streetwear side hustle into a full-time job, I was in the beginning a little bit slow to generate ideas. But then after a while, I noticed that that throughout the day that I would notice things in my life very differently, and I'd see examples that I could pull from stories throughout the day that I could write about that were actually applicable to brand owners. And that's because having that scheduled 25-minute routine every single day switches your mind on, creates a narrative in your head that you then look for throughout the day. And that means you need good idea capture because you cannot lose those ideas. And so here's ways to capture ideas. You can have a pin note on your phone home screen like me, but maybe that doesn't work. So you could carry around a pocket notebook, voice memos, draft folders of emails, even Snapchat. I had Casper Tremlett come on the podcast, and he referred to the fact that he uses, I'm not totally familiar with Snapchat, but he draws notes into some Snapchat saved folder, and that's where he accesses things. But the point is, you just choose one place because you don't want your ideas spread out all over the internet. You just want a single place. So there's two things to know about idea capture. When you're choosing your place, know that the location that you capture your ideas has to be always accessible and easy to access. Again, it's about not losing the ideas in the moment. Okay, so let's recap. What have we gone over? You have your dedicated time to generate ideas, and idea generation in this case is about making, not brainstorming. And the second thing is that you have a place to capture ideas, because when you switch your brain on in that dedicated 25 minutes throughout the day, you'll be amazed at how many ideas just come to you subconsciously from the stories you find throughout the day. And so these two disciplines together will give you more content ideas than you'll ever know what to do with. And that's a good thing. Now, before I finish off, I'll tell you a story. I was working with a brand, and they had their messaging was about being yourself. It was to do with being yourself. And so what we did when we were working together was our goal was really to create more content about this lifestyle behind the brand, about being yourself. And so he came to me, the brand owner, and said, well, I've got all of these notes that I've written over the years about lessons I've learned. And a lot of them were about self-expression and about how to be yourself and about confidence and some of the sub ideas around being yourself and seeking happiness and finding yourself. And the fantastic thing about it was that these ideas about the lessons he'd learned that he'd written down, although they were never intended to be content, they could be turned in to many visual forms of content, everything from reels to short films to a whole podcast if you wanted to. And this is a perfect example of what the simple action of writing in the ideation process, writing something from start to finish, can do for you, and the power that it has to enable you to open yourself up to creating something beyond your product. And that is really what gives your meaning to your business and makes your clothing business a clothing brand. Because your clothing business isn't a clothing brand if you haven't got branding to it. And the branding has nothing to do with the product. It's, in this case, everything about being yourself for this brand owner. So, again, to recap, you have your dedicated time to generating ideas. And that's about making, not brainstorming. And you have a place to capture the ideas. And later, when you have this pool of written ideas from start to finish, you can turn that into many, many visual forms. And that is where the systemization comes. That's where the efficiency comes, because you already have generated the ideas. It's simply about converting them now. So here's your actionable. Here's what you can go away with, because you could take all this and not do anything with it. But I want you to grow your audience asset. So I promise you, if you do this, you will be able to generate more ideas and you know what to do with. I want you to choose a capture location, an idea capture location, and spend 25 minutes writing a piece of content from start to finish on about a story related to your brand messaging. So if your brand messaging is about running, if it's about being yourself, if it's about happiness, if it's about exploring the outdoors or getting off your phone, if it's about getting outside your comfort zone, if it's about being distinct or being different, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Find your brand ideology, ethos, or lifestyle, the meaning behind your brand, and write stories about it start to finish for 25 minutes. So now you have one less excuse to creating content. And before I finish off this presentation, I should let you know, or really present a question to you. And the question is very simple. Do you want to make your brand more than just a hobby? Are you serious about going into this full time? I mentioned it a few times throughout the episode, and it's that I have a daily email dedicated to helping streetwear brand owners turn their side hustle into a full-time job. And the link is in the description, so I encourage you, if you are truly serious about turning your side hustle into a full-time job, please sign up for that for free. It is totally free. And a few things to let you know about the email list. It is daily, and there is no spam, sponsorships, or email retargeting. There is none of that. No spam, no sponsorships, no email retargeting. Just value. Just value. And that's what you'll get. It's totally okay to unsubscribe at any time. But if that is even remotely interested to you, go to the description and sign up. Or alternatively, go to elijahdelport.com/daily. elijahdelport.com/daily. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of Street Cred, and I will see you next week.